Hello everyone, hope you're all well. It is now officially autumn, my favourite time of year, which means that my dark lipsticks have come out, as well as my books about witches. Today we're going to be getting all cozy because today I'm going to be doing the Cosy Autumn Book tag, which was created by my friend Lucy at the Book Bell. The first question is, what book reminds you of fall/autumn? I'm aware that quite a few of these questions kind of, for me, lead to the same kind of books. But one book that always reminds me of the autumn season and kind of leading on to winter is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Wuthering Heights is one of my favourite all-time novels. It is dark and creepy and atmospheric. For me, a lover of Yorkshire, the idea of being on the kind of the dark moors in the kind of fall and winter season is my idea of heaven. I think Wuthering Heights is actually the first classic I ever fell in love with. And every time I read it I get something new from it. It's one of my most reread books as well. So if you haven't read Wuthering Heights yet, I think you need to do that like now. The next one is your favourite autumnal book cover, and mine has to be The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. This is also one of my favourite novels. It's one of my favourite pieces of historical fiction. But this William Morris-esque cover with these autumn colours is just, for me, autumn in a cover. Like a lot of the books that I'll pick for this tag, it's just really atmospheric. It's a beautiful tale of friendship and love, as well as natural history and science, and kind of a wonderful insight into the 19th century at this time. The next question is, what is your favourite autumn drink to read with? And this has to be a cup of tea, but especially in autumn I always love anything that's rooibos or a little bit spicy, kind of like a chai. But my favourite tea of all time is one that I've got right now, and it smells amazing. It's a rooibos tea, and it's by a company called Bird and Blend, and it's called Fairy Tale of New York. It smells of coffee and chocolate, and it's just so warm and it's amazing. Me and this tea had a love affair in York, and I thought it could be just a one-off, so I bought loads of it, and then they brought it back again, I think last year, and every year now I'm just going to buy bags of it when it's available, because you know when you just love something so much that if it goes out of stock you think you don't know if you're going to survive? That's how I feel about this tea. Do you prefer to read late at night or early in the morning? I have to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen early morning. I'm 100% a night person, a night owl, and when I say night owl I mean inside in my house at night. I just tend to stay awake for way too long than I should. I like reading in bed, I like reading in the evening. I think like a lot of us, I was the kid who had their light on, a torch in bed when it was way past their bedtime, and I'm still the same. Halloween is coming. What is your favourite spooky read? I have two choices for this one. I'm sure all of these I could have like a million choices for, but my first one would be The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. This is a creepy historical novel, and it's a dual timeline, which I love, and it's also a dual timeline with two of my favourite timelines, which is kind of the late 17th century, kind of almost early 18th century, and the 19th century. I read this a couple of years ago, and the ending really freaked me out. I don't read a lot of spooky books. I'm not a horror person. I love gothic literature, so I always lean towards that. It didn't necessarily scare me, but it definitely gave me goosebumps kind of towards the end. I'm bending the rules a little bit with this one because it's not necessarily spooky, but it definitely has spooky elements. And this is my favourite novel, one of my favourite novels of all time, as I'll say a million times in all of my videos. This is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This beast of a novel is one of the best things you'll ever read. It is an alternative history of the early kind of 19th century, late 18th century. It's a fantasy novel about magic coming back to England and a world called Lost Hope, and the man with thistle-down hair. It is so beautifully layered and the worlds are so well constructed. It is, I think, the perfect novel. You'll notice from my questions that I love historical novels or reading historical books, I think, at this time, and it really works well because it is that alternate history. The novel itself has illustrations like Hogarth, and it has footnotes, so it kind of mirrors a 18th century novel. Please read it. I know it looks daunting, but it's so good. The next question is, what is the ultimate comfort read for you? I've totally, I think, changed my answer. I was of course going to say Mrs. Dalloway because it's something that I do go to a lot. But actually, in thinking about what I find comforting, I have to be honest. Even though I don't really revisit Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, when I was talking about it just then, I realised how much I love it and how much my love for York is in this novel. And also it's a book that was actually, I think, it was actually the book I think I first gifted to Ben as well, and we shared together as well, because it was one of my favourite novels that I knew he'd really love. And the amount of world building and magic and it's just how Susanna Clarke crafts this novel, I think this probably has to be my ultimate comfort read. But also, let's be honest, Wuthering Heights, one of my most reread books. This is a book that I read pretty much every autumn and every winter, so I guess it would also be Wuthering Heights. What is your favourite autumnal reading snack? I think the thing that I eat the most, because I bake it the most, is banana bread. And I make a banana bread that's really chocolatey and full of cinnamon. I don't really follow recipes, so I just... Sometimes the cinnamon is a lot, but normally it's moist and it's the perfect kind of cake, and it goes so well with a really nice cup of tea. So an evening with a book, a tea and a piece of banana bread with like a shit ton of cinnamon in is my idea of heaven. What is your favourite autumnal candle to burn whilst reading? I always burn candles. I love candles. I'm a very sensory person. I have a really strong sense of smell, and so many of my memories are connected with smell. I just keep smells, I think, more than maybe other people do, because I just pick up on stuff. So having different candles and different scents is actually really important to me in terms of living a nice fulfilled life. So I have loads of candles, but I think I'm actually burning one now which is cashmere. But why I like burning this one behind me, it's a eco wick, but it's one that actually crackles, and that's my favourite type of candle because obviously I don't have a fire in this London flat. Often I will put on reading rooms or like a fake fire on the TV when I'm reading, like an ASMR reading room, because I love the sound of a crackling fire. So my tiny little candle crackles. This one is quite a warm scent. It's kind of, the cashmere is quite smoky and it is very comforting, but my favourite kind of candle smell during this period is a kind of pumpkin spice, something that smells a bit like baking, that isn't too sweet but does just smell like, you know, I've just cooked that banana bread. This is actually my favourite candle that I got last year, and it is pumpkin spice, and this is by Cosy Glow, which is actually a local London candle maker. When it's lit, the whole flat just smells absolutely beautiful, and it's such a warm smell that you just feel so at home in your home. I don't know what I'm saying. We're on the penultimate question now. When you're not reading, what is your favourite autumnal activity? I love an autumnal woodland walk with all the leaves everywhere and how beautiful all of the colours look. So my favourite thing about autumn is just when the trees just go golden and they look like so many different colours. I think because now living in a city I haven't been on as many woodland walks. I love seeing London in autumn. For me there's something special about going on like a little city break, whether that's like a day trip to Oxford, getting all wrapped up in a scarf. I mean, scarf season, coat season is my favourite time, and when I can have a beret on and walk around a city with my satchel and go into a coffee shop and get something ridiculously chocolatey and warm and be all wrapped up and then walk around and go into a bookshop. I know that this is stuff I do all the time regardless of season, but in autumn it does just feel extra special and cosy. The final question is, what is on your autumn TBR? So around this time every year I get obsessed by kind of late 17th century history and early 18th century, but I also just get obsessed with witches. So my TBR every year looks vaguely similar because something happens when autumn arrives, I just only want to read about the Great Fire of London and witch trials in Lancashire. The first novel is a historical novel, and it is The Familiars by Stacy Hall. I am really loving this. It is about the Lancashire witch trials in the early 17th century. It is atmospheric and kind of spooky. I'm really interested in the Pendle witch trials and also in King James and his writing on witches, which obviously features heavily in this book and also in the next book. For me, this is my perfect autumn reading just because it's something that I get really stuck into and just kind of completely escape into as well. The next two are non-fiction. This is the Penguin Book of Witches. This is a collection of different pieces of writing about witches from kind of King James, from the witch trials in England and in America as well. I'm one of those annoying people that when I like something, I feel like I have to read everything about it and know as much as possible. And so what I've enjoyed by reading this, when I've been reading The Familiars and also the next book, I've been able to actually kind of read excerpts and pieces of writing from the actual time, so I can I know the context of what's happening in the novel in the way that the characters may have read pieces from, for instance, King James. The next one is Witches, James I and the English Witch Hunts by Tracy Foreman. Tracy Foreman is a historian that I've read quite a lot from, but mainly in kind of the Tudor period, so I'm fascinated to read this and again just get even more context. I technically finished this book because obviously it's one of these tiny Penguin classics, The Great Fire of London by Samuel Pepys. I now want to read Samuel Pepys's full diary. It was so fascinating to read about the Great Fire and also the plague, which obviously felt very close to home at the moment. Because autumn is different this year, because we are living in times of corona, and I think the things I'm kind of interested in is changing a little bit. So I've been reading a lot more about the plague, hence Samuel Pepys, but I also wanted to reread a book I actually did start, or I read parts of at university, which was A Journal of the Plague Year by Daniel Defoe. As you're probably already aware, I really like Daniel Defoe's writing, and this period in particular, but I felt like I couldn't not read A Journal of the Plague Year, as we are living in a different type of plague year. But my autumn this year looks very dominated by witches, the 17th century and the plague, and the last part I think we're all slightly dominated by at the moment. I think I may have ended this autumn tag in a darker way than probably Lucy intended when she created this tag. But to be honest, what is more cosy than putting on a nice candle, getting wrapped up in a blanket and thinking about death? On that note, thank you for watching and have a safe and cosy autumn.